Okay, so today we're meeting to talk a little bit more about the different ideas related to meditation practice. I know last time we spoke, we were talking about the jhanas and talking a little bit from our experience about what the jhanas are and the levels and the experiences and the factors that are present. And we pretty much discussed all the way up to cessation of perception and feeling, and kind of talked a little bit about what happens right after that. So I think you and I have discussed talking a little bit about now that you've experienced cessation, there is something called awakening. And when we say awakening, it's a very specific word. It's a very specific term to mean something. And there are different ways in which people may interpret that, or ways in which people may look at that and try to compare and contrast based on different spiritual concepts. So maybe first, what we'll do is we'll try to define what we mean by awakening and what it actually refers to from the context of Buddhist practice, uh, and what it means to us, personally, from our own personal journey, what that actually feels like, or maybe we feel like is um, is something that we've always thought about on our spiritual journey as an ideal to experience. So, I mean, very simply put, what do you say
Mm.
awakening is? How do you contextualize
Oh,
awakening?
yeah, that's a really good question. And when you are asking this question, I have in my mind like it's pop-upping many different answer, and it's really hard to say in just one way because I look for meditation for different angles. So when we just look from different angles, that can mean so many stuff, but let's keep it the Buddhist model. So I would say that this is like going into understanding Four Noble Truths
Hmm.
and more like experiential level than just intellectual level. Because when I first met the idea of Four Noble Truths, I was just understanding this intellectual level. And then when I was arguing with my wife, I was curious. Oh, no, it doesn't work. Uh, why is craving the problem? My wife is a problem, not is a craving. And finding this deeper layer is like something that can awaken us from the dream of the problems that we have. And going deeper, it can shown us different ways how we can see awakening, because we can just talk about really nice concept and deep stuff like our like dependent origination and understanding the links. We can talk about um, losing completely craving. We can talk about um, loosen up the sense of self and seeing anatta. And but I really like to see awakening like, seeing things, what is, how I react. And if I can see what is and how I react, there is a space. And in this space is a space of kindness. So I would say that we can just skip over this concept and say, and start with kindness, like a base to, because I started my journey with lots of acceptation, and when I heard the first time about awakening, it was like the project for ego. I was, oh yes, great, let's go be awakened. I say, oh people that, oh my God, that's crazy. I wanna do this. Oh, but I didn't know what I was signing for, like deconstructing this concept about the self. And years of meditation took me to understand that it's not about state, because I was imagined this at the beginning, that this is the state that I get someplace and this place will be and I got it something. And it was I think it's not only for me, but probably for many people, it's the biggest obstacle, that we just crave for a state and trying to catch something, then just open with kindness for everything what arises to us and see really clearly what is. Because for me, it's just what is. In
Mm,
every moment, in every moment is what is. And if you see how you react for this, you see this useful concept of dependent origination in a simple way. Because, for example, there is a tiredness and there is a reaction. Oh, I want to relieve from this tiredness. I want to go for a holiday. But if I can see this without identification, just see what is and open for this, there is wisdom arises in
yeah.
this moment. So this is my understanding of this idea.
Yeah. Yeah, that resonates a lot with me as well. When I was on my spiritual journey, there was all of this mystification about what enlightenment is. That's the other common word, enlightenment. And I'd studied many different teachers, and I'd studied with many different teachers from very interesting lineages. And some talk about enlightenment means there's a big flash of light in the middle of the head that explodes, and you experience a lot of bliss, and it's the light of a thousand suns. Like someone like Osho, for example, said this. And what happens is it makes in the mind a concept of, okay, if I have to experience enlightenment, I also have to experience a thousand suns blazing in my head, and these kinds of things. And if you think about what awakening really is, it comes from the word buddho, in Pali. So Buddha, which we talk about as who we talk about as the the discoverer of the Four Noble Truths in the present time, uh, he really was on a journey to find the end of suffering. He wasn't really looking for mystical states. He wasn't looking for any kind of space in which you're transcending and these kinds of things. Those are, I think, secondary or were secondary to his journey. He just wanted to know, how do I experience the freedom from suffering, the freedom from emotional suffering, mental suffering, and physical suffering even. Um, and so Buddha, comes from the word buddho, which means, Buddh, which is intellect or the mind. And the mind has woken up. The mind has awoken. And what is it awoken to, or what has it been awakened to? It's awakened from the dream of existence, and I borrow this from Bhante Punaji. And in my understanding, as I continue to explore my own experiences with the practice of jhanas and meditation, I think letting go of any perfectionist attitude is also very important. So, what do I mean by that? Perfectionist attitude, right? It means that, oh, I can never experience craving. I can never experience frustration. I can never experience hunger, or I can never get sick. Some people have that idealistic attitude that once you're awakened, it means that your body is in perfect harmony and you'll never experience sickness and things like that. But I think in my personal way of seeing things, awakening really is freedom. It's freedom in the sense of, when we think about the word moksha, which is a word that you commonly you will see in India for what it's the ultimate goal of a spiritual path. So whether it's Vedanta or yoga or Buddhism, moksha is used across all traditions to mean to be free, and it comes from the word muchyate, to be free, like the ripe fruit that drops from the tree. It becomes free from it. So what are we actually free from? In my mind, we're free from any sort of conceptuality. We are free from any sort of constant identification with things. The mind is used to that. The mind is used to like grasping on and thinking, how does this benefit me? How will this affect me? Who is this to me? Is this mine? Is this not mine? These kinds of things. Our whole world, for the most part, revolves around this I, this letter I, or me, mine, myself, as the center point of experience. And I think as we start to practice deeper and deeper, we start to uncover the layers. You mentioned dependent origination, which is a huge topic, huge, huge topic. And, some people, as you say, can define it as awakening is seeing the links of dependent origination, or it's awakening to the Four Noble Truths. Yeah, I understand that. But I think experientially, for a lot of people, they wonder, what does that actually mean? What does that actually look like? And I think awakening is a verb, which means it's an ongoing process. It's like a spiral. We go deeper and we experience the same thing, but from a different viewpoint, from a different standpoint. So the same uh, emotions that may have affected us before, the same situations or similar situations that have affected us before, we have a new perspective on it because of this experience of awakening, so that we can let go of it further, so that we don't have it affect us in a way that causes us suffering. So, very simply put, I would say awakening is, awakening from the dream or from the idea that there is a permanent me that's there, and that seeing that the me is a construct that's used for the purposes of interacting with the world, but no more than that. And there's a lot of freedom in that when you actually realize it. For some people, it feels disconcerting or destabilizing because their whole world has been used to the idea of there is a stable, static me. But since we go through the jhanas and meditation and we utilize bliss and equanimity and wonderful cofactors to stabilize the mind, the insight that liberates the mind into seeing through the nature of things as an impermanent process, an impersonal process, feels very freeing. And the other thing I would say is a lot of people have this conception that awakening means that you have a lot of bliss. You're always happy all the time. It's like everything is a Disney cartoon. No, 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 no. It's not that like at all.
Yeah. Uh,
So maybe we can talk a little bit about, our understanding of the post cessation experience, because that's really generally where people experience maybe their first awakening for the most part. So
mhm.
how would you how would you convey that to people?
Mm. That's the good topic. So the post cessation experience, it could be surprising because I remember myself, I didn't expect something like that. I had so many imaginations how the sensation looks like, but I can say looks like any sensation because there is no continuity in your memory. So when you just go out from this cessation, there is a several stuff that is going on. The first, I'm talking about my first time right now.
Hmm.
This is because it was like the most vivid and powerful experience. Then I was like, the mind is going to use to stuff probably because there's more equanimity. So it's not like vivid, but the first time was like when I come up with this state. I wouldn't say I come up with this state. It was
Mm.
just experience going on. It like the experience. It was like some how to say, like explosion of the consciousness. It wasn't like explosion in a sense of noise, but boom, very clear awareness that came up. And in some moments, there was just pure awareness, no self, no direction, no object, no sense of self, just pure experiencing, I would say, like pure
Mm.
experiencing. Uh, I hadn't had any that kind of a experience before with so pure awareness. And then come up the feeling of relief. And it wasn't exactly relief because I was like saying something bad word like, oh, what
Yeah.
was going like,
Yeah.
and I come up immediately with meditation because whoa. And then I felt it was like, when you go around with a bag of full of something which is heavy and you take off the bag, you feel very light.
Yeah.
And I felt the same, like I was carrying with my life the bag of full of bricks, and I didn't know about it. And then I was like, this bricks just were gone, and it was strange because I didn't notice that I had so many these bricks in my backpack. And then I felt really powerful joy,
Yeah.
really powerful joy, and I was so excited. There was lots of energy, and everything was colorful, just
Mm.
like it was similar experience as taking just a little bit psychedelics. Just was very colorful, and everything because it happened in my flat and my apartment, not on the retreat, and I was like seeing my flat for the first time.
Mm.
Everything was new. Like my neighborhood was like, oh, I felt like I just go for a vacation in a new place. I It was amazing feeling of freshness. And then I started to thinking about what's happened in this process, and I got to a few realizations about this because I experienced a big change in my personality, and it was sudden change because before the cessation, I was struggling with addiction. Before
Mm.
many years before, I was really heavy addicted from drugs, alcohol, and etc. And when I started meditation and I was, getting more and deeper into jhanas, I just lost this addiction, but still I had addiction like I needed to drink some beer during the week and I was crave for one, two beers and I couldn't stop. And it was like some power that was, um, I couldn't imagine that it could stop. And after cessation, this completely evaporate and never
Mm.
come back. Just one click. I don't want to advertise this for people that they have a problem. You don't create any expectation that because
Yeah.
that's my personal journey, but that was the most vivid part. It was like gone, completely gone for years. I felt like never had any problem with alcohol. That was the change that come to my mind, and my heart wants, since this morning, my heart wants to be very kind and go with ethics. I didn't think about like, keeping precepts and being so focused on this, but I
Mm.
noticed that I was just um, organize myself in a different way, more harmful, less harmful
Yeah.
for me and people. And I got to the realization that this post cessation event uh, is very important, because in this moment when you just come up from the cessation and all the scandals arises again, there is a moment like a reset for the mind. And it was the first insight that there was like the reset, because when everything comes back in this clear awareness, the mind sees this for the first time with no identification for a moment, because some identification come up again, which is important to see when you come up from the cessation, to look back what is going on and really be really mindful in this moment, because after this there is lots of excitement, and this excitement could also like be some kind of a craving, and you can be lost in the same patterns, but like more spiritual patterns.
Mm.
So that's my experience with this topic. And then it wasn't like the end of everything. I would say it was like the beginning, not
Mm.
ending. Because I was thinking, I had an imagination that when I got the cessation, my problem will be gone. And because I was really joyful for a long time, it was like, I think 3 weeks for me was very long time. Next day I had the next cessation was like, I sat and suddenly go, boom, again, was my mindful, oh, I forgot about this, because the mindfulness was, the alertness was so clear. The mind was just very clear. And then after months, weeks, um, some problems, issues come up again, and not in the strong there was before, but it was the time to revise this. It was, and now I see this like the beginning of the work. When you got to the first cessation, it's like the moment that you know, really know how to walk the path. It's not the end of the path, but this is like a knowledge how to walk the path, because you still probably go right and left, and that's okay, because this is that idealization that we have. And I was like hitting what you said about perfectionism, because it was like
Mm.
my problem with perfectionism, and I was trying to get ideal meditation, ideal awakening, ideal stuff, and it was the most awakened stuff. It's not being ideal, it's being as you are in this moment, humble, honest with yourself, be yourself. Even there is no self, be yourself, because
Yeah.
to get no self, you need to be honest. You need to be honest, not to be yourself.
Yeah.
Just relax with who you are in this moment, and don't take this so much personal, who you are in this moment. And then it was like more working with the stuff that was arising, and understanding when a better understanding dependent origination, and just let going, more craving, more craving, more craving. I still didn't let go all craving, so I'm just working on this. But my life has changed dramatically over the years of meditation, and after experience cessation. Because what has changed, it I still sometimes experience anxiety. I still sometimes experience shame or guilt,
Mhm.
but some emotions were like it was less this emotion, on the intensity of the emotion just drop dramatically. Like anxiety, I had the really problem with anxiety, and just drop. It doesn't mean I don't experience anxiety, but it's the level is like low, and the mind don't have a problem to experience so much with this stuff. So this is that change, um, um, really important. And last but not least, about awakening, because I got to some really interesting insight, because when you think about what is unawakened mind, you can see that this is the mind that is like in hypnosis, because we are hypnotized with the thoughts. There is the first thought, and this create next thought, and next thought, and next thought, next thought. And I was living in a chain of thought, hypnotized. My attention was like, I know it's hypnotized about who I am in the context of people, who I am to myself, and all the time like in the dream. And then awareness like was open. Oh, just the thoughts. The I is just the thought. Useful. It's like a indication um, in a space. I talking to you, but really it's just a concept. It's nothing
Yeah,
more. And this
yeah,
is really freeing in this understanding.
yeah. That's wonderful actually, because and this is so important for people to understand that not every experience is going to be the same for people. Generally speaking, with cessation, it's like the mind is rebooting. That's the word. It's like a computer. You defragment the drives of the computer, and now things get a little bit more efficient, get a little bit more effective in their processing power. So cessation is a reboot in my mind. It's restarting the system, and so when you restart the system, you can start to see how things come up that create the world in your mind and create the world outside as well. Because really, the way I look at it is, while there is the possibility of an objective world around us in terms of the physics and the mathematics and science and everything else around it, most of us, I would say probably 99.9999% of us live in our thoughts. As you rightly put, we are going from one thought to the next thought to the next thought, and we're only thinking about things rather than actually experiencing things. So awakening really cuts through that, through cessation, or that few moments or however long it is. I can speak from my own experience when in 2016 I did an online retreat with David Johnson, who's the author of The Path to Nibbana, and he's been a very long time close friend and student of Bhante Vimaramsi, who spent many years as a monastic traveling around in Asia and really developed the system that we call TWIM, Tranquil Wisdom Insight Meditation. And I got inspired to do a retreat there because prior to that, I was, studying a little bit more about yoga and then the Brahma Viharas. And it seemed like this program was really talking about cultivating the Brahma Viharas. So anyway, I signed up for the retreat and I went through the instructions as given and as laid out. And I had taken time off for those 9, 10 days to just focus on the retreat. So I had a lot of time on my hands to meditate, to sit, to walk, to do all these things. And it was so interesting how the jhanas came one after the other, and how, as you're listening to the description of the jhanas, the experience also fits that description, and vice versa. And then I was in a space of nothingness for a while, just radiating, very simply radiating equanimity for a bit. And I remember just being in that nothingness for a bit, and then it's like my mind had like a gap in its awareness. It was like there was a winking out, and like, just as you said, like it was like, what was that? Where was I? What was going on in that moment? Like it was like I didn't fall asleep. I didn't become drowsy. I was not with sloth and torpor. It was just like somebody had cut, one of the films from the film reel, and now there's missing data in there. It's like a file 404 error, can't find that particular memory. and as you say, it's a cut in the continuation of the memory. And so I remember just being like, "Whoa, what was that?" And I remember seeing like these little ripples in my mind's eye, these little concentric circles that just rippled out. And it was like, whoosh, just this amazing relief that was there. It was just like, and there was like like a fountain from my heart of so much joy, so much bliss in that moment. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I got up from my chair and started walking out of my room and just remembering, like, I don't think I was walking. It felt like I was floating. Obviously, I was not floating, but everything was so peaceful. Everything was perfect in those moments. Everything was just as it was. You didn't really have to think about anything. And I remember walking across the kitchen and entering the backyard, and the sun was just setting. So I was looking in the backyard, and we had a great big backyard with a big swimming pool and lots of flowers and trees and grass. So I remember just getting like caught up in the beauty of the flowers in the bushes. And it was just a brilliant pink, brilliant yellow, brilliant red. It was like hyper vivid, 16K, 4D, whatever you want to call like the vision, you know? And I remember turning around. So I had some friends over there who were playing ping pong, and they were playing ping pong, and they said, "Hey, do you want to join us?" And I just, silently shook my head. I had this smile on my face. And I was just walking, felt like I was gliding, in the backyard. And I turned around and I saw the most glorious sunset, I probably had ever seen. It was just having shades of purple and shades of pink and orange and red. And there were like little dark strips of clouds here and there. So it was just like, wow, it was a brilliant light. And I remember just like, yeah, it was sort of like a micro dosing of psychedelics or something, like everything was much sharper, everything was a little sharper. So I went back to my room and started sitting for a while, and just nothing in the mind, just complete clarity in the mind. There was just this sort of knowing, this sort of realizing that this is just an impersonal process. This is like, I wasn't verbalizing in that way. It was more like, yeah, I can, like, there was a knowing that there's just walking going on. There's nobody who's controlling the walking, or there's just sitting going on. There's no one controlling the sitting. There's eating going on, but no one is controlling the eating. It's just it's just happening, and life is just unfolding, and this lasted for a little bit. And I remember talking to David, and I said, this is the experience I had, and he said, oh, that's very interesting. And I think he had gone back to meet with Bante to talk about my report. And he came back a little bit later, and he sent me an email, and he said, it sounds like you went for a little swim. And I said, I was wondering what that means. And I realized what he's saying is, you've entered the stream. You've gone for a little swim. You've entered the stream.
Oh.
And so this is what we call stream entry in Buddhism. And I didn't really know what he was talking about. I didn't really understand much about it. I remember watching the videos of Bante on retreat where he's talking about the four stages of awakening, but it didn't really like click for me. Uh, but in my mind, it was more like, yeah, that's great. Don't know much about that, but it feels like a lot of relief. It feels like, yeah, it feels like a lot of suffering had just kind of just gone. A lot of suffering had just sort of uh, evaporated. And I felt like this for a few days, and David said, "You just keep sitting, keep going." And in that retreat, I had multiple cessations, and each one kind of locked in a different kind of experience, and things became more clear. The knowledge of like dependent origination became less intellectual and more experiential, like being able to see how contact is coming up, being able to see what is the vibration of feeling or experience. And yeah, it was fascinating to go back and reading the suttas, because now the suttas started to make sense. You know, the Pali Canon, where you have the words of the Buddha from the earliest Buddhist texts. It's like, oh, this is what they mean by when they talk about mindfulness, what they talk about when they talk about clear comprehension. Oh, this is what they mean when they talk about contact and feeling and perception, and so on. And you know, the idea of the four stages of awakening became more concretized in my mind, of less of a concept and more of like, okay, these are models. This is a model for us to kind of aspire towards. Whether we experience it or not, nobody can be for sure, nobody can be for certain, except for on our own experience, our own mind, which will inform us. Is there more craving left, or is there less craving? Is there no craving left? Is there restlessness still in the mind? Is there agitation still in the mind? Is there still a desire for certain kinds of states of mind? You know, these kinds of things. I think the four stages of awakening are helpful as gauges, but I think it's important for people to understand that you use them as inspirational tools and a way of gauging, and less of an obsessive like thing of like, when will I get there, or how will I experience it, or beating ourselves up due to that moral, ethical, spiritual perfectionism where we feel like we failed. But I think I want to remind everybody that this process is an ongoing process. It's a process, it's a verb, it's something that will continue. You never stop at it, so to speak. You're continuously evolving, you're continuously changing. And the more you do consistent practice and consistent insight and consistent awareness and mindfulness, the deeper the insights will start to become in your mind, the deeper ingrained they will, which will shift how you experience reality on a day to day basis.
Yeah. You mentioned about the four stages model, and I have some caution with this model, because the suttas are beautiful, but they are at the same time are so rigid in describing stuff. And I remember myself, because I had also no, not maybe multiple cessation in this, because it wasn't retreat. I was just meditating at home. So I had one cessation, next then the second cessation, next month, next cessation, and then I just coming to more like having more this experience of cessations. And in some moment, I opened the book of David Jensen of the Path to Nibbana, and I said, "Oh, with this book, I should be arahant, but I don't feel like
Mm-hmm.
arahant." And I started to talk with Doug Crav about this, and because I was like suspicious about some dogma in a model. Like the model is very useful, but the experience is something different, because we have so many backgrounds. Yes, my background was pretty heavy. I was like addicted, have anxiety, depression, and it's lots of stuff to let go. So, and then I realized that the Dhamma can reveal in a different way for different people. And when I started to teach for the first time, I was like surprised how different the Dhamma can reveal for the different people. And this is, I think it's really important to say this really loudly to people, that they should trust their um, their insights and their mm, oh, I forgot the word, intuition.
Intuition. Yeah.
Intuition, because I said this, and I'm always telling the same story, that I think that doubt is the biggest problem. Like when we have this model of craving, of course, doubt is the form of craving, but we, especially in the Western world, we have a problem to believe in ourselves. We feel underestimated, and when we can go in the psychological understanding of this, how we just get it by identification, how people treat us, ourselves, parents, and then we just have this self-esteem and
Mm.
this like to be honest, this is really doubt.
Yeah.
This is like doubting all the time, doubting, and that was my one of the biggest problem because I was doubting in the inside, doubting in myself, and really today it's funny for me, but I know that it isn't funny for many people. But talking about self-esteem and getting self-esteem,
Mm.
it's great for me like laughing because I was trying to get self-esteem, and I in one moment I understand on some retreat, and I was leading a group, and I was having lots of thoughts about I'm a bad teacher, I don't know anything, my awakening is fake, and etc. I was arising the stuff. And then I was talking with Doug Kraft, and he told
Mm.
me, I asked what I should do to get this self-esteem. And that was like identification. I wasn't able to say, and he said, do you need any self-esteem? And I said, any, are you talking about the law? Any. And then in this moment, this is the story I gathered by myself. And then it was like evaporated, never come back. And for now, I know many people probably have a problem with self-esteem and trying to get some good self-esteem. But to be honest, this is the story that we telling ourselves in the mind and talking about the awakening and going in a deeper um, stages of awakening is just let going the stories,
Yeah.
let going the subtle stories that we have, because some stories we let go, and there's more identification in other stories, and we still keeping telling the stories how I awaken, how I'm not awakened, when I'm in this model, maybe I'm not anagami yet, and I'm trying to get, and the most important factor in meditation is that the problem is not taking the next step. The problem is how to see that I'm trying to get next step,
Oh.
just let going, because the mind, it was it was long journey for me to see this. Probably I don't see, quite good for now, but it's easy to me to get to this understanding that the problem is not to get somewhere, but seeing the conceptualizing mind that the tension arises and just relax and soften into experience as it is, and just trust that every moment is awakened. There is no really awakening moments
Mm.
because we are talking about cessation. We are talking about the beautiful bliss moments.
Mm.
And I read the book of Eckhart Tolle saying about his awakening and joy and etc. But really, it's the same mechanism like the first jhana. We free from hindrances for a moment, and the joy arises, and we think that this is awakening. No, it's just the experience of the joy. Awakening is now. So you can hear us, and just in this moment you are awakened.
Yeah.
The problem is, oh, I want to gain what Delson gets, or Andrzej get, or I want to be in a different place. Who is want to get there? It's just the movement of my mind. Just relax into an object of meditation, no object of meditation, just soften into tension and see what is. And see how the mind reacts, going, oh no, I'm not awakened. Oh, I'm awakened. Oh, all this movement. And just
Yeah.
see. This is it. This is it. Nothing more to get.
Yeah, that's beautiful, actually. Um, it's such an important reminder, and I want to, re-emphasize what you said about that, which is we think about it from the perspective of jhana. We think about it from the perspective of, oh, I want to get to this specific jhana. I want to get to this specific state. And the moment we let go, we actually get there.
Yeah.
So the the double-edged sword is that, we want to let people know what awakening feels like. We want to let people know there is something called awakening. We want to inspire them from our own experiences and the experience of other people and from the suttas. But it's a double-edged sword because it helps us to be inspired, but at the other side of it, it's like making us be in that sense of, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And a lot of people who practice will say the first cessation was the easiest. It was the second or the third that was more difficult, because now there's a fruit, that there's a carrot where I'm chasing after. And the moment we just let go of that, we let go of all, ideas, it's much easier for the mind to actually sink into, let's say, cessation, and maybe even have another level of awakening and so on. And I just want to touch upon it for the sake of posterity, and because maybe people are curious about the four stages, and what are we
Mhm.
talking about when we say the four stages. So just to kind of appease the conceptual mind, uh, I do want to touch upon that a little bit. And what I'll say is, um, the four stages of awakening are Sotapanna, which means stream entry, um, Sakadagami, which means once returner, Anagami, which means non returner, and Arahat, which actually means the worthy one. And these models or these stages, you will start to see a lot in the suttas over a period of time. What's interesting is when you look at the first and second sermon of the Buddha, chronologically speaking. In the first sermon, you see stream entry. Somebody attains stream entry just upon listening to what the Buddha says. And in the second sermon, all the five that are listening attain arhat. So these intermediate sort of stages of Sakadagami and Anagami, you see later on in the suttas chronologically as distinct stages. So I think even there, while there is, a consensus within the Theravada community about these four stages and what they represent, I believe that in the spirit of the Dhamma, what it really is in terms of the essence or the essential aspects is, are you suffering, or are you suffering less? Or are you not suffering in this moment? That's it. Because the same model that can cause inspiration can, because of the nature of the mind that's always looking, cause suffering. And I'm not saying the four stages itself or the model itself, but the identification with the model, the desire to attain those models or those stages in the model is counterproductive and counterintuitive to the freedom that's actually always present, as you rightly said, the awakening right here. When you relax into this moment and there's no conceptualization in the moment, that's what's known as nipapancha, the lack of mental proliferation, which is synonymous with nibbana. No fire, no craving in that moment, no desire for anything in that moment. There's a deep, 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 deep contentment and acceptance of things as they actually are. So, going back to the four stage model and what it represents, right? The four stages of awakening. So, Sotapanna, stream entry, what does that actually mean, traditionally speaking? What that means is that three fetters have weakened and then been cut off. And what that experientially translates to is that the mind experiences a deep rooted confidence in the practice. It's like, now I've seen where this practice can take me, and I have unshakable confidence that the practice will take me all the way. There's a there's a deep sense of appreciation and confidence in the Buddha. Uh, and there is a deep appreciation for our fellow practitioners because we are in it together, and there is a sangha, a community, let's say. Community can be two people, even. It's fine, two or three people. But there is a coalescing of volition that we're all in this together, right? So that's sort of the traditional idea. But experientially, what it is confidence that this path that I have taken has invariably led me to a sense of peace and joy and gratitude and awakening. The second part that goes away is the attachment to rites and rituals. So what do we mean by rites and rituals? What are rites and rituals? Well, they could be something like praying to a deity or lighting up a candlestick or an incense before you sit for practice, uh, doing these kinds of different things. And the thing is, with regards to the rites and rituals, it's not like you stop doing them. You might start to lose interest in them. You might say, I don't really need to do this for anything, but it just keeps the mind motivated. It keeps the mind uplifted. But you realize I could take it or leave it. There's no longer this obsessive compulsive idea that, oh, I was not able to light the lamp today. That means it's going to be a bad meditation. Or oh, I didn't do this, so that means I won't get awakening. You've you've cut away the connection between, if I do this, this is what will happen in terms of this rite or ritual, and therefore I'll have awakening. You've let go of that completely because you have seen that the path of insight, of meditation and insight, is what takes you there. And the path of meditation and insight is not dependent upon any kind of rites and rituals. You can do it anywhere at any time. You can do it in a car, you can do it on a train, you can do it on a plane. You could be sitting just in your cabin, you could be out in the park, you could be lying down. There's no rites or rituals there. You can take your mind goes wherever you go. So there's an understanding that the inherent path happens by me meditating and letting go and experiencing insight. So that's very important. And then the third aspect of that is the realization that, yeah, this is an impersonal process. We may continue to still take things personally because of the emotional core of whatever the memory or the experience is. But there is, in the back of the mind, there is sort of like a software upgrade in which the operating system has been um, renewed or refreshed so that the corrupted fragments in the hard drive that cause us to think intellectually, even that there is this permanent self, has been neutralized. And so even though I will say I am Delson Armstrong, and I love Indian food, and I love my family, and I enjoy spending time with my friends, and I like to read a good book when I'm on vacation, or I love to do this and that and the other. All of those are different personality traits and aspects of a structure. But in the back of all of that, there is the knowledge, there is the knowing that that is just impersonal process. My preferences, who I think of myself as Delson Armstrong, what I do for work, how I relax, all of that is still an impersonal process. There's no central identity or core that I can see or understand at an intellectual and experiential level. So this can be available to people when they meditate and have the insight into this at a deep level. And when they continue on the path, as we may conjecture to see based on the traditional model, they get into what's known as once returner. And the once returner is somebody who has attenuated, has decreased the level of sensual craving and aversion or ill will that can happen. So, such a person may have very deep mindfulness, they have deep collectedness, but there's still irritation, there's still frustration with things, there's still maybe ill will towards someone, maybe there's still some forgiveness that needs to be done. And there may be slight attachments to sensual things. Uh, and so it's like if I don't get that thing, I feel frustrated. Um, or I get obsessed around that particular sense based object or sense base. So in this case, that weakens. So the mind is able to catch that and be able to say, I noticed that, let go. There's some slip ups, and that's okay. That's completely okay. We should be comfortable with failing. We should be comfortable with making mistakes. The more comfortable we are with failing, the easier it is to master something. That's what it is to be a master, right? They have failed more times than any of their students. So they are fully aware of that. There is a humility to it. There's a sense of like, I don't need to put on a show. I don't need to put on a show for other people or for myself. I just accept things as they are. And as you do this, the mind will do what it needs to do to make adjustments based on the tools of meditation and insight. And as you get further down, you start to eradicate that sensual craving and aversion. So, in my mind, as I would see it, it would mean that you still have preferences for things. You still have, I grew up in India, so I love Indian food. Um, somebody else who's grown up in Poland, they love Polish food because that's what they're accustomed to. But does that mean they have sensual craving towards it? Not necessarily. It's just that I enjoy these things. Uh, ill will goes away. So there's a greater degree of acceptance of people around us. There may be frustration about things because we want to get things done and things are not getting done on time, and there's a certain pressure, especially when we're living in the lay life. But the idealistic model is there's no more sensual craving and there's no more ill will. And then you get to the stage of arahatship where 5 different things have fallen away. And that is something known as conceit, restlessness, attachment to jhanas, attachment to formless states, and ignorance. So when we say conceit, it is the mind that is comparing between myself and another, or the mind that's comparing between this experience and another experience. It's the mind that feels that intrinsic sense of, I am better than you, or I'm worse than you, or I'm equal to. And when we see through that, then the mind lets go of performing, lets go of trying to be a good person. It just accepts things as they are. There's a sense of stability which is independent of any causes and conditions. Because conceit is that desire for security in a world that is generally very insecure, the desire for stability in a world that is generally unstable. And we look for stability in different things. We look for stability in a relationship. We look for stability in validation. We look for stability in sex, in drugs, in music, in things that we enjoy in food, whatever it is, that thing that feels like, I don't have to do anything. I feel safe and I feel secure. But when the mind gets to that stage, idealistically speaking, it doesn't need that anymore. So it remains independent. And restlessness and remorse. There's no longer any agitation of regret about the past. The past was the past. It's fine. Whatever happened in the past happened in the past. And there's a deep acceptance of it. And there's no worry about the future. What will happen in the future? So the mind remains very, very rooted in the present moment, which continues to flow, all the time. The attachment to jhanas, this is really, a person sees through the jhanas also as signposts. They're just interesting states to be in that the mind can take refuge in for purposes of relaxing and meditation. Likewise with the formless states. And there's a detachment from them. There's less dependency on them, let's say. And finally, there's the um, ignorance, what we generally call avijja in Pali. And that means the lack of wisdom. And I think practically speaking, what it means is there's a lack of the awareness of the emptiness of the self. There's a lack of mindfulness of the Four Noble Truths. There's a lack of mindfulness of the present moment. That's really what, practically speaking, I see as ignorance. And so, in my mind, that's probably what fades away for somebody who becomes an arhat. So these 10 fetters are dropped, traditionally speaking, through these four stages. And I've given this information just for people to understand the model, but it should be understood very importantly that it's more about, in your mind, am I suffering in this moment or have I let go of suffering? If you have that as your compass, then it becomes less about an achievement of where am I in that stage or in that model. And it becomes less about that. It becomes more about, do I have peace in this moment? Am I able to deal with the situation in a way that doesn't cause me harm and doesn't cause another harm? Can I be, you know, can I be in my emotions, but not let my emotions take over in a way that causes further distress, further suffering?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that's really important to understand that this is very simple and mundane stuff. This is what you said, because this all this practice is just seeing if is there any suffering, and if it is, just relax into it. Just be okay with whatever arises. And when you are when you were talking about the stages, I got to some idea that awakening is like, is just understanding that having something is as good as don't want something. If you can just understand that, this is it. And it doesn't mean that we don't want to get pleasure on things in life, but you know that having this is the same as good, like don't wanting. And if you can't get, you can just relax and be okay with it. And this is really mundane stuff, because sometimes we go with in a journey with the opposite state, and we think that this is like we missing the point that it's about deep equanimity, and deep equanimity is not indifference. Because some people, and this is also my path, and some of my students, we have the tendency to avoid life because, oh,
Yeah.
I'm so enlightened, so I don't need anything. I There is no wanting in me. No, it's not about, you have wanting and not wanting, but can you can have all these preferences because I many time read about the awakening, saying that there is no preferences, but no preferences. No, I have a preferences. It's it's more like having preferences and having no preferences that you have these preferences, like the meta level of this understanding. I can want that thing or experience, but if I just can allow myself relax and see that if I didn't, if I can get this experience on things, I can just relax into it and have the same experience, be
Yeah.
free. This is it. It's not like avoiding something. It's just really be honest with yourself, with the present moment, not trying to fool yourself because of these ideas that should be helpful, but sometimes the mind can understand in a opposite way. It's not about avoiding, it's about just being really honest. This is the fact that I was spending many years to getting to the place of just being really honest.
Mm.
What Because it's not about if someone or somebody annoy you. It's really to just admit that there is
Mm.
this feeling arises and going just really light about this topic. It's like it's about authenticity, it's
Mm.
about honest, it's about kindness, it's about being yourself. This is funny because when I heard this topic for the first time, it's anatta is no self. But the best no self is when you are just can be yourself because there is no tension and no conflicts between, oh, I'm that person, and I'm and I'm bad or good or something like that. And when you just can be with all your conflicts, all different intentions, and be okay with it, just it.
Yeah.
No steps further.
Yeah.
Just saying clear what is.
That's beautiful. I actually, that's a great way of looking at it, right? Just being comfortable with yourself, being
Yes.
authentic, as you said, just accepting things as they are also doesn't mean that I suppress my own conditions or I suppress my own emotions. Being in touch with them, being in touch with what's actually going on in your mind actually is more productive than saying, oh, I shouldn't be this or I shouldn't be doing that, because then you can actually transform that if you need to. You can actually you can learn from it. You can see, and being, as you say, honest with yourself means when you see the blind spots being exposed, not withdrawing from them, but rather like leaning into them and seeing them and saying, okay, this is who I am in this moment. This is what I'm experiencing in this moment. And finding the suffering in that, relaxing into it, and just in that process, things evaporate.
Yeah.
The tension, the tightness, it evaporates. And there's a greater degree of intuition. We use that word intuition, which allows us to see things in a way that isn't filtered by that sense of I, which is more of as objective as possible within this subjective mind and body complex. So I think we can stop here. I think we've had a good sort of journey of like understanding, our own interpretations of awakening and looking at the traditional model And really, I think you did a great service to people by saying, like, accepting things, being honest with yourself, being authentic. I think that's what people should take away from this.
Yes, yes, because this is the realization that I got in the in the end of all these concepts and practice is just simple: be yourself, be honest, be kind. And this is, I know it sounds it's easily to set simple, but really it is just kindness, honesty, and it's just being emotionally mature. And just a little bit too crazy too.
Great, great,
Yeah,
wonderful,
yeah,
Andres. So yeah, we'll stop here, and we'll take up a new topic another time. So thank you.
yeah. Thank you. Wonderful talk.